Chapter 11. The Attack by Fire. The Orc chiefs sat in a circle around the dying embers of Hargutha's funeral pyre, deep in thought. The sound of the night forest and the crackling fire provided a background to their contemplation. Grommgar, Hargutha's successor, sat stoically, staring into the flames. "Our war with the Dark Mages is over," he said, breaking the silence. "The Tower of the Mages has been toppled, but at great cost." The Orc chiefs nodded solemnly, thinking of the fallen warriors from their tribes. "But we must now look to the future," Grommgar continued. "And in this new era, we must remember the ancient Orcish wisdom passed down by our ancestors, like Harguth." The Orc chiefs grunted in agreement, each lost in their own thoughts of how to lead their tribes forward. Grommgar stirred the fire with a stick. "Yes," he said, "there are 5 tactics that have been used by our Orcish warriors for centuries. We must remember to be wise and strategic when attacking our enemies with fire, just as Harguth taught us. It is essential that we always keep our resources ready," Zul'jin said, gesturing towards the funeral pyre of Harguth. "We must be prepared for whatever comes our way and never underestimate the power of fire." Grommgar nodded in agreement, his eyes gleaming in the flickering firelight. "It is true," he said gruffly, "our ancestors taught us that there is a time and place for everything, including the use of fire. The proper season for setting fires is when the wind carries the flames quickly and widely. And special days can be chosen to ignite a conflagration, such as festivals or holy days." He paused, looking around the council. "But no matter what the season or day, we must always remember to use fire wisely, for it can bring both destruction and salvation. Indeed, it is said that in the ancient Orcish wisdom, the proper season for battle is when the weather is very dry and the moon is in the constellations of the sieve, the wall, the wing or the crossbar," Zul'jin said, looking around the war council. "These are all days of rising wind, which can be an advantage to us." The Orc chief sat around the dying embers of Hargutha's funeral pyre, deep in discussion. Grommgar, the new chief, spoke up. "Ancient Orcish wisdom tells us of the use of fire as a weapon." He gestured to the smoldering ashes at his feet. "We must be ready to respond quickly when fire breaks out in the enemy's camp and attack from without. But we must also be patient and wait for the right moment to strike if the enemy remains quiet." The other chiefs nodded in agreement, listening attentively as Grommgar continued. "We must also be mindful of the wind and make sure to start fires on the windward side, and not attack from the leeward." He looked around the circle, making eye contact with each chief. "These are the tactics we must keep in mind as we continue to defend our lands and people." Skarrak, the bloodthirsty chief, grunted, "We must be swift and ruthless in battle, like Tempest herself. We must strike when the flames are at their hottest and show no mercy." Grommgar said sagely, "It is said that a wind that rises in the daytime lasts long, but a night breeze soon falls. We must remember this wisdom if we are to be successful in our endeavors." Zul'jin continued, "Indeed, in every battle, the 5 developments connected with fire must be known. We must understand how to set fires and control them, for these are powerful weapons that can turn the tide of any war. Furthermore, we must consult the stars, for their movements can tell us when is the most auspicious time to launch a campaign. And finally, we must keep watch for the proper days, so that we may act on our plans with precision. The ancient Orcish wisdom has always been to use the natural elements to our advantage," Grommgar said, his voice full of authority. He gestured to the funeral pyres burning in the night. "Fire can be used to weaken and distract our enemies, while water can be used to strengthen our own forces. By means of water, an enemy may be intercepted, but not robbed of all his belongings," Grommgar proclaimed. "This ancient Orcish wisdom has been passed down for centuries and is still relevant today. Water can be used to protect us from our enemies, but it cannot be relied upon to completely defeat them. Unhappiness is the fate of one who tries to win battles and succeed in attacks without embracing the spirit of Tempest," Grommgar said, gesturing towards the funeral pyre of Harguth. "Without taking risks and having ambition, our efforts will be wasted and nothing will come of it. We must remember this ancient Orcish wisdom if we are to have any hope of success. It has been said, the enlightened war chief lays his plans well ahead, the good shaman cultivates his resources," Grommgar began, his voice deep and commanding as he looked around the war council, and continued, "Let us use our resources wisely and plan carefully for our victory." Zul'jin nodded and declared, "The ancient Orcish wisdom is clear. We must move only when we have an advantage to gain, use our troops only when there is something to be gained, and fight only when the position is critical. He gestured to the burning funeral pyre of Harguth. This is a lesson that we all must remember. The sound of the night forest and crackling fire filled the air as the orc chiefs nodded in agreement. Grommgar, the current orc chief, spoke up in agreement with Harguth's words. We must make sure that our decisions are based on sound strategy, not emotion, he said firmly. He gestured to the pyre, which was slowly burning out. We should remember the wisdom of our ancestors and not let our feelings cloud our judgment, he continued, looking around the war council. We must be mindful of what is best for our tribe. Zul'jin said, the ancient orcish wisdom speaks true. If we can gain an advantage from a move forward, then it is worth making. But if our position is strong, then it is best to stay where we are and protect our gains. Grommgar nodded sagely. It is true, anger and vexation can be replaced by gladness and contentment with time. We must all remain patient and determined to overcome our troubles. The others around the fire murmured in agreement, their hands making sweeping gestures as they spoke. Harguth's funeral pyre was burning out, a reminder of the war against the dark mages that was now over. Skarrak spoke up, his voice a low rumble in the night air. The orcish art of war teaches us that a kingdom that has been destroyed can never be brought back to life, no matter how much we might wish it. He gestured towards the fire, the orange glow of the flames casting flickering shadows on the faces of the orc chiefs. We must remember this lesson and strive for victory without needless destruction. Grommgar spoke in low voice. Indeed, ancient orcish wisdom teaches us to be vigilant and prudent in all our actions. We must remember that a wise leader and a careful chief are the keys to a successful war campaign and a lasting peace. Hence, the war chief must always be vigilant, Grommgar said, his eyes scanning the council. And a good leader must always be cautious. This is the way to ensure the safety of our tribe and the success of our battles. The other orc chiefs nodded in agreement, knowing that Grommgar spoke the truth of ancient orcish wisdom passed down by their ancestors, like Harguth. As the fire died out, Grommgar stood. Let us retire for the night, and in the morning, we will begin planning for the next chapter of our lives. The orc chiefs nodded, and one by one they stood and made their way back to their camps. The fire was now nothing but ashes, but the memories of Harguth and the lessons of ancient orcish wisdom would continue to guide the tribe.